Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to the Good Vibes Lifestyle. Now, this is a special edition on Friday here because I have a special guest who is actually at the Contact in the Desert. Now, if you were watching yesterday, you met Mr. Charlie McGuire, and I'm going to bring him up on the stage here. And Charlie, there you are. So,
Hello,
welcome, Charlie, back to our broadcast. You froze for just a minute. Now,
oh
Charlie
shoot.
McGuire is the oh, it's okay. There you go. So, yes, you're live, Charlie.
Yes, hello. I'm
And,
turning off the Wi-Fi because I think that's part of the issue here. I'm going to step out of the table here because people are showing up. As you see, part of what we're doing here is we're getting people um, connected to CFD. You know, a lot of things, for those of you who don't know, Citizens for Disclosure is all about getting community action to pushing UFO disclosure on a legislative level. So people are coming up and asking about what we're doing. And so that's what we're doing here, is trying to get people involved. Danny has had a talk this morning. I think he's done a couple panels today, and um, and we have quite a few speakers. I just saw this morning. I saw Whitley Strieber speak, and Ross Coulthard and Bryce Zabel. Is that Zabel? I always forget how to pronounce that. They did a live version of their podcast, Need to Know, and it was all very interesting. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that we kind of hear about, but I think it's a different thing to see them in a live format as real humans, instead of on the screen here. So where I am right now is one of the halls where um, we've got tables of a lot of folks in here. There's Chris Bledsoe on the other side. We've got Benson and Desiree Hertalk and Richard Dolan here. I'm going to walk around a little bit, and so if you have some questions, something about that you'd like to hear, a little bit more
well,
about what the
I'm
experience is like, go ahead.
I'm curious about what was your main takeaway from Whitley Strieber?
So I think the main takeaway for me that I took away was that um, he's very personable. You know, he speaks in a way where uh, he's kind of cracking jokes a lot of the time, and he has this sort of like wry humor about him that to me, just as a person judging another person telling a story, like, adds a level of credibility. It's not this like heavy dramatic thing that he's trying to bring to the world. It's like it's his story, it's his truth, and um, whether or not he's sort of, you know like, his stories are incredible, really. Like, they're talking a lot about um, he talked a lot about the implant that he has um, in his ear, which, I don't know if you've seen some podcasts. The one with Jesse Michaels, Jesse actually goes up and touches the implant, and he can feel it. And Whitley, I think, has a table here, though I believe he might be in a talk or a panel now because I don't see him. But he um, says, if you want to come up and talk and touch it, I think you're welcome to do that, because a lot of people find it's an important experience, and it means a lot to them. So to be able to do that it's really cool that he offers that. That it's just like he's willing to kind of have people come in and invade his personal
Touchy.
space just to do that. Um, but yeah, so and he talked a lot about his different encounters with the visitors, as he calls them,
Mhm.
and and how they, while they're different from us, he said he one of his big takeaways was this: don't treat them like gods. Treat them, they're not human, but they still have needs, wants, desires, motives, you know. And he was talking about how he's kind of a prankster, and sometimes he would do things that they wouldn't like, and they would kind of, uh, you know, display that displeasement, through like loud bangs, and they kind of torment him a little bit in a sort of paranormal way. And so that was kind of interesting to hear that these things are, I think it reinforces the idea that, it's not, there aren't these things that these benevolent demigod-like beings. They're like people, and I think that's an important thing to remember, is that they may have potentially billions of years of experience as a species beyond what we have, but they are still very much people in the sense that they are vulnerable and they have things they're trying to do, and and you can connect with them on a real kind of what we consider to be a human level, but maybe
A
even
friendship.
transcends that. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
very interesting to hear him speak about that.
Did he talk about, does he feel like I know he talks mostly about the Greys, that he's had communions with, that's one of
Mhm.
his books, Communion. Um, does he feel that they are humans from the future coming back to help kind of change the timeline? Or he just feels like they're just a species of beings?
Um, yeah, he talked. Um, I'm trying to remember because I think what his thing was that they are. Um, I'm trying to remember because he did talk about future humans. He said, but I'm not sure if that's exactly what his final say was about that. Um,
Okay.
he did mention his wife, and one of the things that she helped him with was that when he was writing Communion and some of his other books, that he was trying to connect the dots about what they were, what they meant. And she said anytime that she kind of caught him doing that, she said, take it out. We don't know how the dots connect, just describe them as they are. Um, so I don't think it's something that he's maybe ruling out, but it's may not be something that he uh, can like claim with certainty that this is what they are. He did also speak about these little blue kind of dwarf-like beings, that are about 3 feet tall, and uh, and how some of a friend of his wife, who ended up being his wife's secretary and helping her with all the letters that were sent to them as a result of publishing Communion. This woman, Laura something, can't remember her last name, but um, when she was pregnant with her daughter, these blue beings appeared by her bedside. This is 1952, so there wasn't a kind of global paradigm around UFOs beyond Roswell, which was kind of like far fetched for a lot of folks. Um, but so she sees these things and recoils, and it's like, oh my god, what is it? And they say, don't worry, we're not here to hurt you. We're just concerned with your child, with your girl child that you're carrying. And of course, that didn't comfort her at all. She was still uh, quite worried about these things. And they said, why are you afraid? And she said, well, because you're so ugly. And they said, one day you will look just like us. And
Ooh,
so I think that's again where he was like trying to connect the dots of saying these could be the elements of future humans of some sort, or at least some branch of intelligent life of which we're derived and which they're derived, and they kind of
right,
ended up there and we're here now. So you know
right.
again, what the connections are, how the dots connect, is hard to say, but
Right. There's a lot of
that's
different theories for sure.
yes,
We're all
yes,
trying to kind of connect those dots and try to make sense of it all, Now,
right.
you said that Russ Colhart was also there and you got to hear him speak. He's the one that's with News Nation that does a lot of shows on UFOs and disclosure and that kind of thing. What did you
Mhm.
get from his talk?
Um, so yeah, Ross and Bryce, they did a live version of their podcast, and I don't know if you all have anyone has listened to their podcast. I'm sure you have at least once at
Oh
one
yeah.
point. And they kind of their format is very conversational.
Mhm.
They share a lot of stories. They talked a little bit about how they've met. This was one of the first times. I say one of the first times. They've only met a few times in person before meeting here. They met primarily on Zoom, and they do all their broadcasts on Zoom. And when Ross is in the States, he's usually doing something on behalf of News Nation or Reality Check. So they don't really have time to
Mhm.
kind of connect. Um, so it was interesting to see them both in person, sort of feeding off each other. Um, let's see. Ross did speak about there was a Q&A at the end, and Ross spoke about the whistleblower. Someone asked about David Grush, if he's going to come forward and speak publicly. And one thing Ross said was that, um, you know, David is working hard behind the scenes. He's now a member of Eric Burleson's staff team, and so he's working very hard with Eric Burleson to kind of push this disclosure. But in his mind, in David's mind, he's like, I've stuck my neck out. I've done this. And Ross Coulthard kind of, feels like it's now like, the government needs to make some change. Like a lot of whistleblowers are ready to come out, but they've seen that, David Grush testified in 2023, which is 2 years ago now. And
Yeah.
there has been very little done about that testimony, in response to that subpoenas. There's been no follow-up about like the claims he's made. And in fact, there's been some, slander on the terms of the media side about him. Not that he's, met, been, oh, well, I think maybe he has been threatened to some degree, but since he's come out, I think he's been just trying to stay out of the radar. And so, he's working behind the scenes, but, what Ross Coulthard was saying is that the environment can change when legislation and this oversight committee kind of demonstrates that it's going to make meaningful moves in response to what the whistleblowers say, because some of them may come with pretty extraordinary things. And if they say, hey, there's this extraordinary thing, and no one takes that, they listen to them, but they don't take them seriously as far as following up, then it's like, what the hell did I stick my neck out for? Why did I put my head on the chopping block just to have it kind of ignored? I mean, at least, they're not being like disappeared as maybe they might have been, 20, 30, 40 years ago. But I don't think there's still, people are trying to live their lives. They have families, they have kids. They don't really want to, stepping into the limelight as a UFO whistleblower would be a huge change for that person and for everything in their lives. So they want to really know that like it's going to have some meaning. So I think that's kind of that's what Ross was saying. Bryce was a little more hopeful. He said, I do feel like there's a change. The theme of contact in the desert is event horizon. So that, in one definition, it is that the event horizon is the boundary beyond which outsiders of the event cannot observe the event anymore. But in this context, the guy who runs it, his name's Captain Ron, he's saying that the event horizon is something that we are seeing. We see this horizon, and beyond that horizon will be a series of changes that will kind of irreversibly change the way we see the world and live in the world. And so it's a little shift from the technical definition, but I think that's kind of what Bryce was emphasizing, is that there's a lot of movement, and yet we can't be silent. We can't be what's the word? Complacent. Comfortable. Yeah. And Danny Sheehan actually mentioned this last night in a quick talk that James Fox just walked by me. You can't be complacent in this, which means you can't just sit on the sidelines. You still pressure your legislators, get this on their radar so that when that bill comes around, it moves the needle enough so that they sign the bill. Because people are always frustrated with that term, moving the needle. They're thinking it's so small, what's this going to do? But it's like every time the needle moves and another person says, all right, let's pay attention to this, that can start a cavalcade of events that, I think you just have to maintain that openness to it. And so anyways, I sort of share Bryce's sentiment. I think Ross maybe, he's been reporting on this for a long time, and I understand his sort of disillusionment around the movement of it and frustration. I think it's both good to acknowledge that and yet say this is frustrating and it has been hard, and yet we keep going.
Right.
So
what you said the theme of the event is event horizon. So the event that they're talking about, I guess, is disclosure or revealing.
Yeah,
is that what they mean by it? And so we're just starting to see that.
It's something in between disclosure, something in between disclosure and just like a broader awareness. Because, one thing that Jake Farmer and a lot of other whistleblowers are talking about is the consciousness element to this. And so it may be disclosure related to, hey, we have non-human craft, we have this technology, these beings exist, but disclosure for this event horizon may also just be, we as humans already have something quite extraordinary, and understanding what that is and how to work with it would also just change our world completely. And I think I sort of think that making that shift may eventually open people up to the possibility that other beings might exist and have these capabilities, and we can communicate with them. Um, but it's not clear what that event is. I do think yeah, it's somewhere in the middle of that. You know, whether it happens first with the nuts and bolts. Here's this craft. Here's this alien body, or
Right.
an understanding that we as conscious beings have more more ability than is previously understood. Remains to
Mhm.
be seen.
Wow. All
Yeah.
right. So what else is on the agenda for today? What other events are you going
Well,
to today?
let's see. So there's something at 3 o'clock. I think what is it 3? If I'm not mistaken, there's a
Psionics panel?
psionics. Yes, thank you. Yes, I did send you that list. I'm glad I did. It's a psionics panel. Jesse Michael, Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell, and a few others are on this panel. And so I really wanted to see that and kind of get the just because I haven't seen many talks around that yet. I mean, people have talked about it, but it's not been the focus of many talks yet. So that will be interesting. And then 5 o'clock, Chris Ramsey, Area 52 is doing another live podcast here that I'm looking forward to seeing. And then 7:30 to about midnight, there's a special event that a friend of mine and I paid for sky watching, not sky watcher the organization, but sky
Okay.
watching. Ben Hansen and Mark D'Antoni, I think is his name, are taking a group of people out in bus to the desert to go and look at the stars. So we'll do that at
Are
7:30
they
tonight.
doing
And
CE5? Are they doing
I,
CE5?
they are Chris Bledsoe himself is doing another um, a sky watching event. I think that's happening Sunday night. I unfortunately will not be here for that. Otherwise, that would have been really something special to see. I I I don't know. I know Ben because Ben Hansen was he was a member of the FBI if I'm not mistaken, and now he's a UFO investigator, and but he's very much I think on the technical side of like let's film this thing, as opposed to the
Mhm.
spiritual connecting, calling these things, down. But that doesn't mean we may not see something, and maybe they will introduce it. I actually have no idea, so I'm in for a surprise with
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
We will see tomorrow morning. I am working an event with Richard Dolan. He's talking about sort of post-disclosure, um, what the post-disclosure world looks like. And then there's another lecture by Jesse Michaels that I'm seeing tomorrow, and then I got to go back home. So that's sort of the schedule these days. Of course, we're meeting a lot of interesting people. This is our table here. Some of our lovely
Is that
volunteers.
the CFD?
Yes.
Is anyone there that I know
Maybe you might know
from the
Greg,
group?
the guy in the hat. He does a lot of he does the marketing, the newsletters for New Paradigm Institute. Although he tends to stay behind the scenes, um,
Mhm.
and he's a great guy. And Judy and Mike, who are the two in the turquoise shirts, I actually just met today. So I don't know if they've been involved in our CFD meetings or anything. So. A lot of new faces here, but it's exciting.
That's great.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Awesome. All right. Well, I will. I You've answered all my questions right now. I don't want to
great.
hold you from getting ready for your other events and just networking and
Yeah.
everything. How many people do you think are attending the event? Did they say like
Um,
what the attendance was?
I've heard a couple different numbers. I think the number I've heard more than once is 7,000. 7,000 people.
Wow.
I guess one other thing that I'll say, just to kind of close out here, is that everyone is very open. I mean, like Richard Dolan is sitting here talking at a table with two people who just walked up and want to talk with him. Chris Ramsey has been walking around the hall, sitting around talking with people. Danny Sheehan will be having a dinner. Someone will come up and just want to share the story, and you see that he looks them in the eye the entire time that they're speaking to him. There's really this openness to this experience. Of course, no one wants to be flooded with fans, but it's like
Right.
everyone kind of respects this, like, what's going on here. Um,
Mhm.
but everyone's really open, and people are walking around, and it's a really special vibe. So I'll be able to
So,
check in tomorrow too. I think I sent you my schedule, so if you'd like to have me
yes.
on again for a closing remark,
Yes.
then
Love to. Awesome.
let's do that.
Great. Well, thank you, Charlie, so much for the check-in, for letting us know what's happening over there, live over there in
Hmm.
California. It's cool to be kind of connected and just knowing that this very, I would say, very influential event is happening because when you bring all those people, UFO influencers, let's call them,
Hmm.
together, and people are networking, people are, you know, working together, partnering, cooperating,
Yeah,
that's when a lot of magic can happen,
absolutely.
and progress in a lot of different
Absolutely.
levels. So,
Absolutely.
thank you
Yeah,
so
it's very
much.
special.
And
My pleasure.
yeah, I plan to check in tomorrow and see how you're doing and see what else you can share with us from the
Great.
event.
I
So,
look forward to
thanks,
it.
Charlie.
All
I'll
right.
talk to
Thank
you
you.
tomorrow.
Take care.
All right. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for watching this special edition of the Good Vibes Lifestyle. I just wanted to, share with you this special event that's happening in California, and maybe next year I'll be able to actually be there live and broadcast live from there. So, thank you for watching, and I wish you a beautiful day. Take care, everyone, and peace out. Talk to you tomorrow. See you tomorrow.